Brad Biggs is back covering the Chicago Bears for the Chicago Tribune. Brad, before we were rudely interrupted, the reaction to the city when you realized that you're on Russell Wilson's Final Four.
Yeah, I think it was a huge development. Bears fans were fired up. The hope for not only the fans, but the team has to be that the Bears being on this list of 4 teams that the agent shared with Adam Schefter isn't the highlight of their quarterback developments for this offseason, because if it isn't there, it will probably be disappointment for the Chicago Bears at Hollis Hall as they try to solve the 7-decade quest to replace Sid Luckman.
But I'm Danny Downer today because I don't think this happens with the Bears. I don't think Russ is traded this year. But it's wishful reporting that we have. There's a lot of hope there. The realistic possibility that Russell Wilson is a Chicago Bears is what? A Chicago Bear is what?
Well, I don't think the odds are great for the Bears. Because you can come up with a list of reasons why it makes sense for the Bears from now until the end of your show today. We could bang our heads against the wall to come up for motivating factors for the Seahawks to do this trade. Seattle has been a perennial contender with Russell Wilson on the roster. Every season, the Seahawks are in the mix, at the minimum, in the NFC West, in the conference, and a shot to vie for a Super Bowl berth. Take him off that roster, I don't know what they have, and I don't know how they replace him in a trade with the Bears, and obviously the Bears can't give Seattle a quarterback that makes them a contender. Nick Foles won't check that box for them, so they'd have to make a separate move then to acquire the replacement, and I just don't see it. I mean, what would lead Pete Carroll down that path? I have a hard time envisioning it. I'm with you.
What about Deshaun Watson? That possibility, a month ago, that was the topic in Chicago.
Yeah, well, I think what separates the two guys is that Wilson's camp has come out and put Chicago on a list of just a few teams. Both of the quarterbacks have a no-trade clause, so they can kind of pick and choose a potential destination. No one has publicly linked the Bears to Watson, but besides Bears fans, right, to this point. So I think that's the big difference there. The Houston situation is completely discombobulated right now. I don't know if anyone has a good guess when there could be some movement or a development there. Both sides are really dug in. So I think that's what separates the two. Sure, the Bears and Ryan Pace should call Nick Caserio and the Texans 2 or 3 times a week until Houston tells them to buzz off, but I don't know that that's a realistic possibility for the Bears either. And again, same thing. How do the Bears swing a trade with Houston that puts the Texans in position to replace their 25-year-old star quarterback? The Bears can't do that.
But you know how this works, though, Brad. We always look at one side of a trade. We don't look at the other side, which is, what is Seattle getting back? What would the Texans get back? It's, hey, the Bears with Russell Wilson, are they a Super Bowl contender? And I always go, well, yeah, they probably would be, but let's get back to reality here. And what is plan B if you don't land a quarterback via a trade?
Yeah, that's where, I've said it's going to plan C. If you have Wilson and Watson in some order as A or B, you go to plan C. The most intriguing guy to me for the Bears in that scenario might be Jameis Winston. Drew Brees is yet to retire. If Drew Brees somehow returns to the Saints, I would think that would put Jameis in play for a bunch of these quarterback-needy teams and make him an interesting candidate. Is Ryan Fitzpatrick going to continue his career? Will Marcus Mariota be cut and put him in a position where you don't have to trade to acquire him from Las Vegas? Could they have interest in trying to rehab Sam Darnold? Sam Darnold would be a risky proposition for the Bears from the standpoint that the GM Ryan Pace and the coach Matt Nagy, they're under pressure to win this season. The word that ownership used was that needed to see progress after consecutive 8-8 seasons.
It was another P word in there. It's playoffs is what it is, Brad. Not progress.
Well,
playoffs.
they got to the playoffs this year, Dan. They've got to either win in the playoffs or get into the playoffs with a much better record than 8-8 when they actually backed into the thing.
Is Mitchell Trubisky bad or just not good enough?
He needs a fresh start elsewhere, and the Bears need a fresh start. And he probably needs some new voices in his ear too. He works hard. He's diligent. It didn't happen here. He's got a good record. He's 29-21 as a starter. That's a pretty good level of experience for a guy that has been in the league for 4 years. But I think he's going to benefit from a change of scenery.
But imagine if the Bears didn't pass on Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, and they got Mitchell Trubisky like later in the first round. I wonder about the expectation level. I don't know if that would have helped. Well, it probably would have helped. I don't know if it would have helped enough, but it just felt like whatever Mitchell Trubisky did, it always paled in comparison to what Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes did. And as you know, a lot of times you're compared to the person that you were in the draft with, like Alex Smith and Aaron Rodgers or Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning. Mitchell Trubisky was never going to be good enough, it felt like.
Right, and that's why a fresh start elsewhere, while that storyline's still going to follow him wherever he goes, it's not going to be front and center quite as much as it's been here in Chicago, where they not only drafted him ahead of Watson and Mahomes, but traded up to draft him. The Bears, so you look at what they've invested in the position. They traded a first-round pick, 2/3 and 2/4 to trade up to get Trubisky, and then to acquire Nick Foles in a trade a year ago. Foles is the only one that remains under contract for them, so it's quite a mess for them right now as they hope to somehow get better offensively and win with a defense that they feel remains playoff ready after a second-half slump.
How about this? You just don't have a quarterback, Brad.
No, they don't.
No, but how about we just don't have one?
Oh, we just don't have one? Yeah. Well, we'd have to create some new rules for the game, right? Or
no, just the Wildcat.
Wildcat.
Yeah, I just go Red Grange on him. Let's just because if Nick Foles is going to be your quarterback or Jameis Winston, and that's not the momentum you want to have after being a playoff team the previous year, and
it would put them in a position where there would be little room for error with the moves that they're going to make around the position this offseason when you look ahead to free agency, which opens next week, and then the draft. They would have to be razor sharp in terms of they brought in some guys, they made some real value buys, they helped out, and they'll have to hit in the draft. The quarterbacks that are after Watson and Wilson are guys that you can win with, maybe not win because of, and therefore you're going to have to be better around that position.
Should be fun, but tamp down these expectation levels, Brad.
I'm trying to encourage Bears fans not to get too dreamy.
Tell them to talk about Illinois basketball or Zach LaVine or I don't know. Something else, because
White Sox might be a good story.
Yeah, that's it. With Tony La Russa, the ageless Tony, the genius Tony La Russa. Brad, thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Have a great day.
That's Brad Biggs. He covers the Bears for the Chicago Tribune.